All right, everybody, why don't we get started? We got over 20 people, and I know people will join it. People, based on past history, there'll be people who will join it as the webinar gets going. So let me just kick it off by saying I'm David Finn. I'm the Executive Director of CleanApps.org. As you all, I think many of you know, we do these webinars once a month that are really designed to help our members learn about best practices, particularly focused on compliance-related issues, but also, since our goals are really to help our members prosper, we would think it's also terrific just to build community and have open discussions about hot issues. And we try to get people who have expertise in a variety of subjects to speak. And we're lucky enough for this month, that Will Treves, who runs apps for Ask, agreed to present on a subject that I think we all know is a pretty tricky one for everybody in this business, which is controlling wayward affiliates, because we know that's a subject where even our members who are committed to thriving while also protecting consumer security and privacy, it can be hard to do that when there are hundreds and hundreds of affiliates who may be driving clicks but maybe doing things in not the most responsible way. So we asked Will if he would present, and he's agreed to, and he's going to just share his thoughts about that. So let me just say to everybody, if you could please feel free to ask questions of Will. He's certainly open to that. He made that clear to me. Will, I'm going to go on mute now and just turn it over to you. Hopefully everybody can see your slides. I can certainly see them. And thanks again, Will.
No problem. No, happy to be here. Yeah, if people have questions, I don't know how the sort of participation works here, but you can throw them in the conversation box that I have open here, or go off mute and just yell at me. I'm sure either of those are fine. And so, yeah, my name's Will Treves. I've seen many of the people I see attending. I know I've either met you in person or kind of just aware of you from the industry. Just as a kind of refresher of who we are and what we do, Ask Applications has three lines of business. The first line of business is the distribution of browser extensions to consumers that are monetized through search. And we do that. We've done that for a long time. We do it at large scale, and that is going to be the focus of what I talk about today. We also have some B2B business where we power third-party search feeds, and that is a smaller bit of the business, and I suppose affiliates are a little bit less relevant. And then the third thing that we do is we have a business called Slimware, which is a sort of PC optimization business, and we kind of made the decision quite a long time ago to not to use affiliates for that product line at all. So everything you're going to see today is generally through the lens of our kind of browser extension business. And what I thought I'd do today is just show you what our playbook is and show you what we do to try and manage an affiliate network. And the bad news is, if you want to do it well, it's not cheap and it's not easy, and it does require resource. But I think that we have sort of come a long way, and we are sort of trying to do it as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Again, just going to show you how we do it, and I would love to kind of hear how other people do it as well, so we can all learn from each other. All right, so when I was thinking about, how to run a successful affiliate, supervisory department, it really begins with how you organize that team. And I believe that when you are creating a compliance function, the first thing that you should probably do is have that function report into the legal team in your business, not into the business people in that business. And what I mean by that is, business people are generally compensated on growth, right, and revenue. And so their incentives may not necessarily be aligned with the requirements of successful compliance operations, right? Successful monitoring of an affiliate network. And so the way we've chosen to do it is the compliance function reports into the legal team. They don't report into the business people, into the product people, the marketing people. It's primarily a legal function, and the result of that is that there is a nice, healthy tension between the people making the money and the people enforcing the rules. You know, a good year for a marketing person looks like a huge amount of growth, right? A good year for a person in a legal team is 0 compliance issues, right? Obviously, that kind of binary choice is you shouldn't have that as a kind of binary outcome. There has to be some tension between the two, and there is, and there's always going to be push and pull between the folks managing the affiliate team and the people trying to drive the business. And I just think that philosophically, that's the way it should be, and that's the way we've set it up. But again, if other people have other opinions, delighted to hear them. And so this is what our compliance organization looks like. So as I said, it reports into the legal function, so there's push and pull between legal and business. And then we have sort of, I would say, 4 main kind of stakeholders within the team structure. We have a fairly senior lawyer internally who sets the policy, right? And who is in charge of the policy, the written policies, and that playbook and those requirements. And then we have a VP of security. His name's Kirk. I'm sure a lot of you know him. Who is one of the most important people in the business here, because what he does is he creates the systems to implement the compliance policy, right? So you have the person setting the rules, you have the person implementing the rules, and then we have the kind of worker bees. We have compliance analysts split between the US and India, and their job is to actually do the sort of the brute force of reviewing the data that the systems that Kirk built spits out. And that is that's generally quite a manual process, and that's why we do it in low-cost places like India. But that's like I say, that those are the folks in the trenches doing a lot of the kind of daily work. And then we have a compliance council that is a formal group representing kind of different stakeholders in the business, and the compliance council meets when we have infractions that need to be discussed. The compliance team will pick up on something an affiliate has done, and in probably more cases than not, it's debatable. It's a gray area. Things aren't always cut and dried, and when they're not cut and dried, they need to be debated between the various stakeholders in the business. And that council has legal on it, it has marketing on it, has product on it, has me on it, has Kirk on it, and we decide what we are going to do in instances that need some discussion. Do we go hard on the affiliate? Do we warn them? Is it what is the extent of the infraction? And that's not always a gray area, and I'll come back to that. And then, the governing sort of principles that are the foundation for all of this are, we take in inputs from all over the place. Legal principles, regulatory principles, third-party principles, from organizations like CleanApps, like the CSA, like whoever it may be, other third-party organizations, and then our own guidelines. And these are sort of digested into the policy and the operations that then are kind of manifested in our day-to-day. So that's kind of organizationally how we've set it up. And I think it works fairly well.
Hey, Will?
Can I just ask you? Go ahead.
Yes.
I only have one question. Could you define for the group, for everybody here, what's your definition of an affiliate from an Ask perspective? Because I think everybody's got a different perception on what that means.
Sure. And if that's fair enough. From our perspective, it's someone who we pay to get us a download.
Okay.
Basically, we have 2 forms of acquiring users. Generally, we have our own internal media buys, where we buy where we purchase the media ourselves and we control everything, every pixel, and then we have what we call our affiliate business, which is where we pay third parties per install, and we're not buying the media; they're buying it for us, and they're bringing us the install. And so that's what I'm calling an affiliate, and that's a good question. If other people, I'd like to hear from other people who think of affiliates in slightly different ways.
Affiliates also could be influencers, guys who have, let's say, blogs, and yes, they're bringing in traffic or awareness, and you're paying them to do so. So the term affiliate is almost like broadly used, a little bastardized. I'm going to give a lecture on affiliates on the next session in the future, and I'm going to break down what are different kinds of affiliates, and it's a really a broad term.
It is a broad term. Yeah, in our case, we don't do what you just described. We don't have that kind of editorial, that sort of customer acquisition that sort of looks and feels like editorial. We don't do any of that. We generally just pay other people to do media buys for us because they're better at it than us, or we just can't scale as much as we would like with our team.
I'm going to bring that up when I give my lecture about, that there is a type of affiliate that some of them are so sophisticated that they actually are media buyers. Even networks are technically even affiliates. So again, the term goes from that single guy who's operating out of a basement to there's even organizational groups which operate as what we would call affiliates. So again, the term is very broad.
Yeah, it is broad, and I think that the governing principle is it's anyone who it's an install that comes from media that we have not acquired ourselves. I'm calling that an affiliate, and that could be very broad. In our case, we don't do bundling. There are a lot of things we don't do. It's generally people doing search and display on our behalf.
And Will, this is David. Have you guys always had it, as long as you've been at Ask, that it's reported into the legal, as you said, the structure? Has that always been the way it's been since you've been there?
I've had different roles in the organization, so I can't sort of say decisively it's always been like that, because I've been sort of doing other things where I haven't, necessarily been paying as much attention to the operations of compliance. But the short answer is yes. Like, at least since I've been running a business, it's been presided over by legal.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. So fairly boring slides with some words on them. Let's give you an example. So here's an example of something that we don't like. Right. So this is an ad for one of our PDF conversion products. And as you can see, it says install Sesame Street, download now for free in the headline, and the subhead is it's an ad for a PDF converted product, right? That doesn't make any sense. I don't like that ad. It's confusing, it's irrelevant, it's misleading, it's annoying. We shouldn't be running it, okay? And I don't think that this particular example was intentional by the affiliate that was running it. I think they had some dynamic keyword insertion going awry, and the campaigns the DKI wasn't set up properly and didn't have the right controls around it, and so the result is an ad like this, where people could be thinking they're getting Sesame Street, and next thing they know they're in a PDF conversion funnel. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So this is an example of the kind of thing we look for, because we don't want ads like this running. And so we started, when we realized that this kind of particular flavor of ad was out there and exposing us to risk, and we wanted to get in front of it, we started looking for these ads, and we quickly realized that the internet is a very big place. And initially, we just had a kind of handful of human beings poking around on the internet trying to find ads like this, and it's just not effective or affordable to do it. Or maybe it would be effective if you hired 100 people to do it, but then it becomes unaffordable. And quite frankly, when you do things at scale, you have to automate them. At the same time, you can't just outsource the whole thing to a computer, because in many cases, or in some cases, judgment is needed, right? There are shades of grey. Things sometimes are debatable, and computers aren't good at making judgment calls. And so the way that kind of operationally we do this is we have some humans and doing things that I kind of described on a couple of slides ago, who create the guidelines, who review marketing assets, that create keyword blacklists, that do the enforcement actions, that enforce the policies. Those are things that computers aren't very good at. And then we have technology that actually has been built in-house, where we've one example of the technology is we built a crawler that reviews thousands of websites continuously. By OCR, optical character recognition, where it's looking at display ads and figuring out what they say. The crawler also does thousands and thousands of searches a day in multiple geos to bring back ads, and so that is more than you could ever get out of a reasonable team of people, and there's interplay between these, right? So the humans, the humans at the wheel kind of decide what we want to look for, decide the things that we need to be vigilant for, and then we just let the technology do a lot of the heavy lifting and generate the data. And like I said, it does generate a lot of data, and that's what when you have people reviewing that data, that's where we have people kind of. The brute force of that is in lower cost places, so it's more affordable. But I don't think humans can do this alone. I don't think technology can do this alone. I think it has to be this kind of collaboration between people and computers to do it right. And the good news is that allows us to find examples like this at scale and do something about it, because if you're not watching it, it will proliferate and get out of control. So that's how we choose to do it. And then another thing that you need to do is not just kind of look for examples of creative in the wild, but look at the data that your network is generating, right? So there are certain types of installs we don't want, right? Unfortunately, in the past, there have been instances of installs coming from, malware and from vectors onto users' machines that the user wasn't aware of, and that is completely unacceptable. And no one should ever end up with one of our products on their computer that they didn't want. And so to protect against that, you have to look at data. And the data that you have to kind of think about is, first of all, decide what is behavior that is abnormal. Like, our network just spits out so much data. You have to decide, okay, what are the warning signs that something may be amiss? What looks like, what gives the clue that there are machines at work here installing things without the user's permission versus users versus normal user behavior. So you have to figure out what those metrics are. Then you have to just decide what are the thresholds for something being wrong. Like when you're dealing with the size of network that we have, you have to be very careful about setting the thresholds for an alert so that they are low enough so that they are effective, but not so low that you're getting false positives all the time.
So,
then you got to.
Do you have a specific example? It feels very abstract.
Sure. Let me give you an example. So generally, here's an example. A user installs one of our products and then uses the product, right, in certain ways. Users tend to click in the products in certain ways. They tend to, perform a certain number, have certain engagement patterns.
Right.
A user may perform a certain number of searches on the first day versus the second day versus the third. So if you are seeing, let's say, products from a certain campaign or installs from a certain campaign coming in and doing either an abnormally low amount of engagement, right, or an abnormally high amount of engagement, that could be something that could indicate that something is amiss, right? At scale, users tend to behave in certain ways during the install funnel, how they install products, the number of clicks that they get put on landing pages, etc. Throughout the install funnel, they tend to behave in certain ways, and within the product, they tend to behave in certain ways. Abnormally high or abnormally low types of engagement and behavior is one example of a signal that we would look for. Does that help? Is that good?
Yeah. I was going to throw in one of the ones that we started figuring out. We'd find ourselves down these paths with new ad networks, trying new ad networks, and we'd find that a lot of them some of them were fraught with bots.
Yep.
That were clicking through. Some were really sophisticated. They were clicking through to an install, right? And so,
yep.
But the telltale sign for us, we just look at the landing page engagement. And usually bots will go and click on every clickable item they can find on a page, whereas we know that a real human being might click on maybe 4 different things.
That's a perfect example. Actually, we've found the opposite, interestingly.
Okay.
Which is in some cases, human beings will generally, like you say, click around on the page, go to the privacy policy, click, just poke around a bit,
right.
and let's say, click 4 times on the page. So a bot may be trained to click on the install button, and that's it.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And so that's an example where abnormally low behavior is as good an indication as of something being amiss as abnormally high. And it's you can learn as you go.
Right.
I've seen a different pattern where basically you get the install, but then because in my case I can actually see the activity if they use my app, and it was just like dormant installs. Like they installed it on all these different machines, the IPs were unique, but there was no activity on the app at all, no engagement at all, and usually that flags me to think bot, because it was just mass installing the installer of our program, but in reality there was no value added back to us. And you would see that a lot mostly on PPI networks.
Right.
They're basically, they don't care, they just want to get paid on the install. They're shoving in all kinds of computers, but there was no real use of the app, and we usually flag things like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example. I mean, the problem is doing it at scale, right? And writing the technology that can look at all this data, so you don't have to, and flag when things look amiss. And it gets very sophisticated. Like I've spoken to the compliance teams at some of our affiliate networks, and they do things like, they screen for the incidence of high volumes of installs on old version of operating systems, because sometimes what will happen, particularly in sort of other parts of the world, Far East, is the government will liquidate a whole bunch of computers, and someone will go and buy 200 old PCs, put them up in a warehouse, and just like have them running, installing software, right, on old versions of operating systems. So there are many different flavors of warning signs, and everything you described, Bogdan and Alvin, are good ones.
Hey, well, can I take you back to your previous slide for just 1
second?
Sure. So that flow, so you described a crawler, which I guess I understood you guys created your own crawler, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then you find stuff, and I see in your bullets for humans that basically you might sort of add new keywords to your keyword blacklist. I would imagine that to be something you do for your own media buys. Are you able to impose those blacklists on your affiliates, or is that purely just for yourselves?
No, we impose them on our affiliates. The question is, but they have to, they have to enforce them, right? Or they have to do something with it. And so, yeah, we have keyword blacklists. We distribute them. They're supposed to go into effect, and our job is to find out when they don't.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. And also, actually, one way I want to enhance this flow, one area in which I want technology to help is those keyword blacklists gets very, very long, and having people kind of constantly updating the blacklists feels like there has to be a better way of doing it, and technology should be able to help there. So.
Will, if you take that example of the Sesame Street one, is Sesame Street now on the blacklist? I mean, those are certainly innocent words.
Sure.
How do you address that one?
Well, I mean, so our affiliates can bid on whatever they like, right? If they want to bid on Sesame Street as a keyword, God bless. Like, if you want to spend your money on that, that's fine. You just can't have it in the headline, right? So that's what this is, and that's why I think that this is probably an honest mistake or a sort of bad implementation of an affiliate through kind of massive automation of bidding, buying a bunch of keywords, right? Bidding against a bunch of stuff that has nothing really to do with the product. If they want to waste their media money on that, that's fine. If they want to, if they believe there's a return on that, that's fine. They just can't show Sesame Street in the headline. That's the problem. And so this is not allowed. And so the blacklist is more about what the ad can say rather than what you can bid on. We pretty much let people bid on whatever they want, I believe. Don't hold me to that, but I think generally we affiliates can bid on whatever they want. They just can't create misleading ads out of it.
Right. Google policy allows you to bid on anything you want, but then they do have issues with what the copy is on the ad, right? But again, they're not policing this, right? As much as a vendor like yourself would, right?
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
and I see what you're saying completely, Will. That I get that distinction. I just also means that, like, this is, as you said before, it's awfully hard then to automate this. This is where the human beings come in, right? A human being needs to look at that headline. Is that right?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, this is the crawler. So, Sesame Street and many, many, many other branded properties are on the keyword blacklist, right? And again, that's not that they can't bid against it; they just can't include it in the ad. And so, what the crawler is doing is running around the internet, finding ads and identifying whether keywords on the blacklist are appearing in the copy.
Okay, so that is a quote keyword blacklist, but your point is if it's appearing somewhere else, you might say it's fine. But it is a word that now those words are now on your list since you've seen them be used in a problematic way. They are on your list now.
Well, and we put things on the list, proactively, not just when we find them. So and this is where This is where I have this kind of idea of bringing automation into this creation, these keyword blacklists, which is, I don't know, we should probably kind of pull from IMDb or, other Netflix and just have, every sort of, every new movie that comes out or every new video game that comes out added to the keyword blacklist, so we don't have to do it manually.
Got it.
I like that idea, Will. That's good.
David, just be aware, regardless of all the automation that he's showing you, the web is a deep ocean. So, I don't care if it's IAC with their billions of dollars of resources. The web is a deep place. So, I have stuff similar to what they have to Spider, things like that. But it's deeper. It's a deep, deep, deep trench. I just want to point that out to everybody listening.
Yeah, I mean, as Will said in that bullet, the internet is a big place. I mean, I guess it's that very point that, it's awfully difficult to tame, the gazillions of affiliates who are out there in that very deep ocean, potentially doing things they shouldn't be doing. And so I guess what you'll talk about next month, Alvin and Will, what you're saying here is some of the things you're trying to do to get into that ocean, but it's not an easy task. I mean, you've said that from the beginning, Will. It's expensive, it's formidable, and it's complicated.
Yep.
And I want to point out, for everybody who's listening, when you say IAC, we say that name very loosely. That's if you look it up on the NASDAQ, I'm sorry, on the stock market, this is a $1 billion company with resources galore to do this. So could you imagine, for example, mere mortal, $100 million companies, $25 million companies attempting to do this? It's because he could spider the web, but if the guy's using some kind of inclusion in some downloader or some kind of binary that's outside of the internet, he won't be able to see that. He can't spider that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap, but it's about working smarter rather than harder, basically. And new threats and affiliates do come up with new ways of, like, for instance, this example. This didn't really exist. We didn't know that this was an issue until relatively recently. We found out it was an issue, and we kind of reacted to it and figured out a solution. It's that this is not something that you can just set up and leave, and just let it run itself. You're always having to adapt. You're always having to like identify new issues and try and create solutions for them. That's the price you pay for using affiliates. You're like, if you want to have every pixel under your control, bring everything in-house. But that's a problem too.
Yeah, that's a problem, because that becomes very costly. And then you're also incurring direct responsibility of the action of those affiliates. So it's a double-edged sword when you do that.
Yep. All right.
So speaking of which, what is the stick that you carry to keep them in line?
Sure. So on this slide, what do we do? What do we do when we find things in the data? Any number of things. Partner suspend, it depends. Every case is different. Like with this example, it's like, oops, like we called up the affiliate, we're like, this is unacceptable. They were like, our bad. We know why it happened. We screwed up the creation of a campaign. We've turned a few dials. Should go away. And it's like, okay, and we may or may not charge back for the installs that came through that campaign. On an example where, on the other end of the scale, where we have evidence of installs being driven at large scale by bots, then we'll immediately suspend the partner, and we may look at legal action. We'll block the referral URL, and we may sue them. So it kind of depends, and that's why you can't. Back to my other point, this can't all be just automated. There has to be discretion involved. You have to make decisions based on many different kind of inputs, because not all cases are alike.
I guess when you stop paying them, they kind of stop doing these things, anyways, right?
Yeah, but I mean, by often, in the case, we have a reputation that we want to protect, and most importantly, we have consumers that we want to protect. And if it turns out that an affiliate was using doing huge swathes of installs via bots or via malware or some kind of nefarious vector, and the user had no idea the thing was being installed on their machine, I'm not just going to stop paying them. Like, you need to send a message, and you need to get very serious, and you may need to take legal action. I've my personal observation, you may agree or disagree with me, is news generally travels pretty quickly through the affiliate world, and if you've sent a message, that generally sticks.
Got it.
Will's correct, and I had to sue a few affiliates in the past. And I gotta tell you, news travels fast in that little universe. You take a few of them to court, you teach them a lesson, they cut the stuff real fast.
Yep. All right. Perfect segue to my final slide, which is it's who you choose to work with. Garbage in, garbage out. You have to start. I think good compliance starts not only with how you organize the team and how you kind of align incentives for people internally, but also who you let through the gate. And for every 100 people who give us a business card or send us an email at trade shows or after trade shows, we end up working with like 6 of them. These aren't real numbers; these are abstracted numbers. But we work with a very, very long term with a very, very small group of affiliates who have gone through a pretty kind of intense screening and incubation process. Apparently, people are still seeing slide 4. I don't know what to do about that. Are you still seeing slide 4?
Yeah, I think the way to do it is just I think if you stop presenting and restart presenting, something like that.
Hang on. So, uh, uh, share program. How do I do this?
Yeah, I'm not sure myself. Hold on.
I'm trying to stop sharing. Oh, share screen. Maybe it had.
Yeah, so stop sharing, and then yeah, there you go, and then restart the share.
Or
Hang
you
on,
can do
sorry
share
about this.
desktop.
Share program. Give me 1 sec. I've figured it out finally. How's that?
Yeah.
It
Yep.
works.
Yes? Okay, good. Um, yes, like as I said, if someone wants to work with us, they have to kind of earn the right to do so. Most don't make the cut, and although it's painful and tedious to kind of have to review everyone to the extent that we do, then you're just saving money and time and anxiety on the back end, because if you let everyone through the door, your problems are just going to be much bigger, and your policing cost and your compliance cost is going to be higher. So that would be my kind of the three things that I would sort of summarize from this is: number one, you got to set up your compliance organization the right way. Number two, you got to have technology assisting the humans. It can't be either technology or humans. And number three, you got to choose very carefully who you work with, and that'll save you a lot of headaches in the long run. That's what I had.
All right, great. Well, I think I know I've got a few more questions. I'm sure others do too. Let me just ask you first about like the legal cases you've done, Will. I mean, you guys, what's happened in those legal cases? Do they tend to settle? Do they actually go to court? I mean, what's happened, and what's happened to the entities who have, what have you seen when it comes to deterrence when you find serious errors or misconduct by affiliates?
The good news is, in my tenure of doing this, it's only got to that point, I think, once or possibly twice. Because, if you're doing everything else that I kind of described in these slides, most importantly, choosing high quality people to work with, then you're really you're exponentially lowering the chances of something very bad happening. So it doesn't happen very often, and I'm probably going to plead the fifth and not comment on the outcome of those particular cases because I just don't feel like it, and but I think it would be sort of unwise for me to do so in public without checking with the attorneys. But the good news is you really shouldn't be getting to that point very often if you are if you're picking your partners wisely.
So Will, actually, that brings up an interesting question. So your affiliates have contracts with you directly, or do they operate through a third-party affiliate network?
Both.
Okay. So payments can come direct. So some payments come directly out of IAC to the affiliate, and some go through a third party.
Yes. I think that's probably that's fair.
So I imagine contracts play a big role, right, in your ability to keep people in line too.
Yes. Yeah, and we have a lot of contractual protections, but you never really want to use them unless you really have to.
Right.
And Will, I have a question because the relationship between you and the network, I imagine you work closely with the networks because they're sort of the ones who are really policing a lot of the stuff with the affiliates. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, I mean, and it's in their, and I'm sure we all kind of know who these networks are. Generally, they have their own level of compliance as well because they don't want to be on the hook for bad behavior for their sub-affiliates. So again, pick wisely.
Yep. Okay.
Hey, Will, this is Gary at Real Defense. First of all, thank you for doing this. It's very helpful, very informative. My question is about your affiliate platform. Do you guys use like a third-party platform to do recruiting and management of your affiliates? as well as payouts and traffic management. And that's one question. The second part of the question is, how big of a scale are we talking about? We're talking about, like, are you working with thousands of affiliates, hundreds, tens of thousands? Here's a little bit more background.
Sure. So all the kind of operations of our kind of affiliate network. So the recruitment is done in-house. When you see someone wearing a IAC applications kind of polo shirt at a conference or something, that's one of our people. That's not contracted out. So the recruitment, the onboarding, it's all generally done by ourselves, and the payment, we don't really use any platforms. It's all managed internally. And the second, sorry, what was the second question?
The second question was about scale.
Oh, volume, yeah, scale.
Yeah,
I mean,
volume.
I think we have contractual relationships with sort of probably dozens of affiliates, just because over the years we've built many different relationships, but the material volume comes from a relatively small number, and per slide 7, we're generally not recruiting that many anyway. It's probably a sort of 80-20, as usual in life. It's kind of an 80-20 rule, which is 80-20 rule, which is the vast majority of our affiliate activity comes from a handful. Yep. Alvin, by the way, you just posted in the conversation channel a sort of link to IAC as a company with 7,000. There are not 7,000 employees in Ask Applications. I mean, IAC is a holding company that has many different internet businesses within it. But I have nothing to do with Angie's List or Home Advisor or Match or Vimeo or anything like that, where that 7,000 employees number does not apply to my division.
I'm just pointing out the size of your parent company. So, because a lot of the guys who are here, they're we're all independent software companies. Some of us range, sub million, up in the millions, but just to give them an idea of who's talking, because I'm sure they have. I'm just pointing it out. You do have access to the resources of the parent. Parent is, in some shape, subsidizing you, so you have the resources to do this sort of thing. That's what I'm pointing out when I'm doing that in there, just to show the size of your parent. You know what I mean?
Yep, I see the parent company is a big company, but I mean, I think if you have the right intentions and you set it up correctly, and you hire the right people, I don't think it requires 7,000, the resources of IAC to do this right.
No.
Like, set your org up correctly, get a good legal person, get someone who knows how to build systems, hire a couple of people in India, you're done. And well, I wouldn't say you're done, but I mean that's making a big dent in it. And I think, if I was running a much smaller company, I'd probably still have the same volume of resource. It's like, it's not cheap, but it's not prohibitively expensive. And if you get someone to write you a web crawler, as sounds like you have, then that's kind of a lot of the heavy lifting. So I don't know, because I can't speak for smaller businesses, but I don't think that I think you can make a big dent in monitoring affiliates with the resources of a much smaller company, in my opinion.
But just for the record, I wasn't critiquing you.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out, more like the severity of who's speaking and the type of system that's in there and the philosophy as far as picking the right partner when it comes to affiliates, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think what you just said, Will, is like super important. Like, yes, you're bigger than some of the other, other members who may be in CleanApps.org and the thousands of other app developers out there. But I think what you just pointed out was, no matter how large you are, you have to commit some resources to this, because you have a responsibility to do it, or or it's going to be bad for your business and it's going to be bad for consumers, etc. And for me, like that's the big point I think you're making. No matter big, medium, small, it's just not going to be good for your own business, right? I mean, maybe you could say something. I mean, like, what does happen? I mean, what is the bounce back for you? Let's just say, legal lost every argument, and somehow you took a more aggressive position and said, look, we can't worry about this. I mean, have you had instances where you really have gotten customer feedback where it's really bad for your business?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I think once or twice in my tenure of doing this, we've had flare-ups and incidences of things that should be completely unacceptable. And again, I think it's sort of hopefully testament to some of the also general philosophy towards having an affiliate network. B, how we've set it up, that it's relatively infrequent that happens, and the consequences are very dire, and both in terms of potential regulatory action, action from platform holders like Google or anyone else, reputational risk. Like, I don't want to have to deal with any of that, and so that's why we take this seriously.
Stephen, I just saw you wrote something there. Can you say what that was? I think because it just disappeared from my screen. I mean, I can pull it up, but
I've got it. It's good.
Yeah.
Stephen says, I think the toughest thing here for smaller/growing businesses to replicate is being too selective with partners. We're often fighting for growth. Add to that healthy tension Will mentioned between compliance and sales. Noted. Agreed. I mean, there's always going to be that tension. I mean, for what it's worth, even when you're large, even when you're a big company, we're a public company. I have quarterly goals that I need to hit, and I'm incentivized to exceed them. The temptation to grow is there for big companies as well. Just if it's any consolation.
David, if you don't mind me commenting here, the reason why I kept talking about ISC's size is because compliance, even in a situation where they're large, and by the way, just for the record, Will, I had your lawyers in my front door delivering me papers once because I was listing some stuff that you guys had from a long time ago, because I'm the maker of an anti-malware product. So, long story. So I know that you guys could find me. I'm a very hard to find person. But I just want to talk to my brethren here. If these guys have an issue at this level, they got a filter to control wayward affiliates like this, just keep in mind that it affects you no matter what size you are. Right. Because some affiliates, and I won't say all affiliates, but there's a population of affiliates that I would literally say that they have nothing to lose. And I said this when I was in Las Vegas. And you, the company who makes software, the publisher, your reputation, you have everything to lose. And that's why, affiliates is like a double-edged sword. It could be great if you are, like Will said, pick the right partners, the right people that you're working with, but it could also be a detriment to your business. That's the problem with affiliates.
Yeah. And ultimately, what I got here is the onus is always on the actual creator of the product here, right? I mean, Ask could just easily have said, "Hey, we rely on the network to take care of itself, and our partners to our affiliate platforms to do the monitoring for us. They actually do it themselves. There's a reason for it, right? There's a cost to not doing it."
And the system has basically worked. It sounds like from what Will and Alvin are saying is the system, the deep ocean of the internet has basically it's been a little bit. There's been chaos, and it's up to the app makers it's up to the publisher, as you say right there, the one on the hook is the publisher of the software, to go out and take some of these proactive steps that Will has talked about. And I guess what Stephen is saying here is that that's a tough balance, because everybody wants to make money, and we want everybody to make money, but we want to do it while balancing, this issue of making sure that your own business doesn't get ravaged in the process because you lose all control of it and you have affiliates who are doing things wrong that ends up harming your consumers and harming your business. And leaving, to say nothing of whether there's actually any regulatory bite by Google or Microsoft or anybody else. It just ultimately is going to hurt your brand.
Yep.
Anybody else have questions?
All right, well.
Thanks so much, Will.
Yeah, Will, it was hugely helpful, and I think it was great the way you talked through how you do it, and I think it does have application to, no pun intended, to smaller entities, although, of course, the challenges are going to be different, but the basic theme is there for anyone, no matter the size. So big thank you to Will for his presenting and sharing, their playbook, as he put it, and thanks to everyone who participated and asked questions, and we'll have a recording of this. If our recording worked well, we'll put that up on the CleanApps.org website. And stay tuned next month when Alvin will present from Enigma from their perspective as well. So thank you again, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
You're welcome. Thanks, folks.